And finally, we get to the college football playoff semifinal game at the Rose Bowl between number 4 Alabama and number 1 Michigan. Now, we've gone through the entire list of all of the bowl games. 30, well, actually, I guess we've been through 31 of them. We're doing this one and the other playoff game. And, man, what a game this is. The Rose Bowl college football playoff semifinal. Two of the biggest brands in all of college football. Two of the most historic teams in all of college football and brand-wise. Michigan opened up as a 2.5-point favorite. That went down to 1, and now it's back at 2 points in favor of Michigan. As we all know, Alabama sneaks in over Florida State. Chase, would you like to go first in this one to determine who will play for a national championship between Alabama and Michigan?
Yes, because I have a unique insight, Freddie, I think. But first, before I say anything, make sure to hit that subscribe button, guys. We've done every single bowl game, like Freddie mentioned. We'd love for you guys to follow all of our content, but thank you so much for watching regardless. But if you're watching now, Alabama, Michigan, I absolutely love this matchup. I think this is the most fair, even ground playoffs that we have had since its inaugural season. I think all 4 teams are evenly matched up. I think they're going to be great. Alabama has done a wonderful job since that Texas game. A lot of close games, but fought back, won those games. Double-digit wins over the big teams like Tennessee and others, Ole Miss as well, that they needed. And then Michigan, on the other hand, has handled business all season long, has been absolutely exceptional, even without their head coach there for, I believe, half the season, guys. What was it, not 6-7 games that he was not coaching for? So that's awesome. My biggest thing in this game is Blake Corum for Michigan. Blake Corum has 1,000 yards on the ground, but 24 touchdowns. J.J. McCarthy has 19 touchdowns through the air this year. Name me the last time a running back has had more touchdowns than his quarterback thrown. I couldn't tell. Maybe the 1950s, 60s? I don't know. Somebody tell me.
I would assume it's probably Garrett Henry back in 2015.
Over Jake Coker?
I would assume so.
Honestly, I couldn't even tell you the last time I heard a running back in one season having over 20 touchdowns. So maybe so. But for me, that's the biggest problem with Michigan. Is Michigan, you can look at them and you can understand that it's a one-dimensional team, in my opinion. If Blake Corum is not moving, that offense doesn't move. Now, last year when they played TCU, they opened up a lot more, had a lot more points on the board. I just don't think it happens. I think this Alabama defense, they might struggle in the first half, but Kevin Steele has done a wonderful job getting into the second half and totally flipping the game plan around and switching it to stop the other team. Look at the Tennessee game, look at the Ole Miss game, look at the LSU game. And LSU, Jaden Daniels went down with an injury, but still, I have Alabama in this game. I think it's going to be close. I'm going to say it's going to be 31-23, Alabama. Quinn?
Yeah, I'll start with this. This matchup's interesting to me just because I kept doubting both of these teams all year. Preseason, I had Michigan as the bottom of the big 3. I thought they were going to drop the Penn State and the Ohio State game. They proved me wrong. They won the Big Ten for the 3rd year in a row, and they did it without their coach, which is crazy. And then with Alabama, I mean, I picked against them in the Texas game. I picked against them in the Ole Miss game. I picked against them against LSU, and I picked against them in the SEC title. Now, I know that's only 4 times, but that's a lot for a program of their caliber. I just did not believe that this team had what it took because of the turnovers at the quarterback position and the offensive line struggles they were experiencing. They turned that stuff around by the end of the year. They weren't really turning the football over. The offensive line was giving up significantly less pressure. When you look at these two teams from a matchup perspective, you know, it's really going to come down to line of scrimmage play. I mean, Michigan's going to try to establish the run against an Alabama front that's, I don't want to say it's for sure the best front they've played against because they have played 3 legitimate defenses in Iowa, Penn State, and Ohio State. But what I will say the difference with Alabama versus those teams, Alabama's offense is better than Penn State's, Ohio State's, or Iowa's. When you want to know like what can Michigan's defense do, this Alabama offense, I don't want this to sound like incredibly disrespectful, but there's no way to say this without it sounding this way. Michigan is Georgia, but less athletic. Like that's exactly what they are. Like so you've already seen Alabama handle the Georgia offense, which I think is a more athletic version of the Michigan offense. I do think Michigan has an edge at the offensive line relative to Georgia, but it's not a massive. And I know they've won the Joe Moore Award 2 years in a row, but to just pure talent, it's not that huge of a gap. But defensively, the team speed that Alabama's defense and that Georgia's defense play with relative to any of those defenses in the Big Ten, it's not comparable. Like the sideline to sideline speed, there is a massive edge in favor of those two mega brands in the SEC, and it's a big reason why you see SEC teams win the national title all the time is the sideline to sideline team speed, and because of that, I just think eventually Alabama will name the last time that a team like really just ran the ball down a Nick Saban team's throat. I can't think of the last time that was like. You've seen it with like getting the quarterback involved in the run game, but just traditional running the ball, no. And if you're asking me, can JJ McCarthy throw the ball against the Alabama secondary? I don't like their chances, and it's mainly because of their receiving core. I just don't think their wide receiver room matches up well against Alabama's secondary. I think there's a huge talent edge in favor of Alabama's secondary. I will say this. If Michigan's to win, it will be because they force turnovers on their own side of the field. But ultimately, the X factor in all of this to me is you look at a Nick Saban Alabama team when a title is on the line and Nick Saban has had a month to prepare. He went, 3-0 in the BCS national title and 6-1 in playoff semifinals. So his overall record is 9-1. He's lost once by 7 points to Ohio State in 2014, who happened to have Urban Meyer, who's won 3 national titles, which makes him second among all coaches in the championship game era. That's the only coach that's ever beat him in that scenario. And Harbaugh does not have the postseason success to make me think he's going to pull this off. So give me Alabama in a close game.
Yeah, I just want to mention something because we had a comment on one of our videos. I think it was a Michigan video. I think it was Michigan and Ohio State, I think it was, in the game. Where somebody brought to my attention that J.J. McCarthy was like this Heisman contender, was this, was that, he's so good, blah, 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 blah. Well, if he's so good, then what does that make Jalen Milroe? Because Jalen Milroe has better stats on the year than J.J. McCarthy, and he didn't even play in the USF game. So that's number one when it comes to edge there. I think Alabama has the edge at quarterback. Running back, you guys mentioned it, Blake Corum. Unbelievable. 24 touchdowns on the year. He's not going to be able to run against Alabama. We saw this with Ray Davis at Kentucky. He got all this hype about he's the best running back in the SEC. And when he played Georgia, he could not get it done. I think he had like 60 yards or something, half of his average on the year. When you look at receiving core, Isaiah Bond for Alabama has emerged as their star, thankfully for the Auburn game and even in the SEC championship game when Alabama scored that touchdown. I think it was in the fourth quarter. He caught 4 passes to bring them all the way down the field. So receiving core goes to Alabama. Defense, I would give the slight edge to Michigan as a whole based upon statistics. Now, when you watch these two teams play and you think about the competition that they're playing, and that's no disrespect to the Big Ten, but there's just not an elite quarterback in the Big Ten, period. There's just not. This is the worst year, in my opinion, for quarterback play in the Big Ten in a long, long time. So as a unit on paper, I'd give it to Michigan, but I'd give it to Alabama in a sense of how they play the game, right? They physically dominated Georgia. And there's not too many teams ever that's physically dominated Georgia the way that Alabama did in the SEC championship game. So I'm picking Alabama to win this game. I think they win by 13 points. I think it's going to be very close early on. And then in the fourth quarter, I think Alabama is going to establish the run game a little bit more, lean heavy on it, bleed the clock, and score a late touchdown to run the score up on Harbaugh, just as Bama did. I think it was in the was it the Orange Bowl down in Florida when Alabama played Michigan in 2020. I think it was 2019 turned to 2020. Anyways, 13-point win for Bama here, playing for chance at the national championship, and I think they get it done handily here in the Rose Bowl.